Let's bring in Dr. James Peterson, Director of Africana Studies and Associate Professor of English at Lehigh University. He also blogs for the Huffington Post. Doctor, good to have you.
The people you're calling job creators, that's very generous, Ed. They're not job creators. They're debt shufflers and CEOs of multinational corporations that outsource our labor force. So the elites are making decisions that will impact the non-elites, and unfortunately sometimes that disconnect makes a lot of these discourses and a lot of these discussions very, very problematic. The people of America need to know that as far as I can see right now, the Republicans are not too interested in creating jobs. And obviously this delayed response is that. This is also part of the disrespect, but also let's understand what their agenda is. Their agenda is about cutting. Their agenda is about protecting the wealth of the rich. Their agenda is about letting corporations sort of run crazy over the American economy. They do not seem, as of right now, to be too deeply invested in creating jobs for working class folks. Obama can't be so aggressive without folk from the CBC and other folk coming out and saying, hey, we need jobs. And on the folk on the right, especially the Tea Party-controlled areas of the Republican Congress, will no longer be able to be obstructionists if we take it straight to their constituency and say, hey, we're trying to help you out here, but your homies over here in Congress are not working with us. I really have a lot of faith in young folk across the mainstream and college campuses. They were inspired by President Obama, and I really feel like the ways in which we think about race, and especially the ways in which older generational folk think about race, younger generational folk are really trying to move beyond that and move past that. We're not post-race, but there certainly is an earnest attempt by younger folk to look at folks outside of the sort of rigid racial lines that we've drawn for ourselves in the history of this country. No, David is right. It's also the fact that we're bringing home our soldiers from Iraq. It's the things that the president is doing that are bumping his numbers. Indeed. The clown show is just a distraction.
Absolutely. Professor
Joe, you're right, but the thing is, the reason why he's not doing that right now, and the reason why they're going through this political calculus, is because he's more interested in damage control than the sort of civil nature of this kind of issue. The problem with this is it has much less to do with Rick Perry and whether or not he's a racist, and much more to do with the ways in which racial residue still exists in our society. The bottom line is the content of those newsletters is disturbing, it's racist, it's sexist, it's homophobic, and in some places it's anti-Semitic, and he has to answer the charges of that newsletter because it had his name on it. There's no escaping that for him. We can't have a venture capitalist as the CEO of the United States. And listen, the Republicans like this line of attack because it's much more appropriate than where they really want to hit him, which is on religion as we're moving into South Carolina.
Bankrupting our country and destroying our national security. Really?
Wow. No, Mr. McCain, that was your other homie, George Bush, who did those things.
Exactly.
But here's what's interesting. I don't know if this endorsement means that much. I mean, who else is McCain going to endorse? Some of the vitriol you hear in his voice is just left over from 2008, I think. But I don't know what this endorsement necessarily means. Who else could he endorse out of this field? Yeah, I'll take the comment the day the meeting took place. And listen, somebody here is lying, and it's not the President of the United States.
He believes. He thinks that black Americans are brainwashed.
And he thinks that African Americans are loyal as voters.
Okay.
And that's not what he said, maybe they should take a look at him.
He said brainwashed. You're saying loyal, which is a great cleanup, but he said brainwashed. And listen, this is the politics of distraction. The Republican Party has become much more homogenous, and the dog whistle racial kind of politics of the Tea Party have been on display for well over 2 years now. Black folk can see that. We are not dumb. Questions about institutions. And you know what? They can accuse me of being a racist and accuse us of being race baiters as much as they want to. We're still going to pursue the case, pursue justice, and keep talking about the things that are important for this particular issue.
Dr. James
Experiencing when he's out there on the road. I would also argue that the CBC speech is similarly thematically construed in the sense that he's tapping into a civil rights era Christian ethos within the African American community, and when he's out there on the road, I think people are feeling him on that.
All right, let
perspective.
me ask you, Ron.
Strangely, though, I think we want the same thing. We want a trial as well. We want justice as well. So Mr. Hannity's indictment of the media and of Congress doesn't seem to make too much sense if you consider the fact that all we're asking for is due process. All we're asking for is for the wheels of justice to begin turning in this particular case.
It's insane. It is insane. But again, this is where we are in politics right now, Ed. Where we are in politics right now is people play the race card to the basest instincts of some folks' humanity. People will manipulate imagery in the public sphere to try to tell lies. The bottom line is we've got to improve the public discourse around politics.